Welcome to the Best Wedding App podcast.
Swipe to the left, swipe to the right. The best wedding app brings your dreams to life.
The Best Wedding App.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Karis White, and I'm so excited to have someone on the show today who I call a good friend of mine, Erik Westein, the founder and lead videographer of Westward Films. Now, Erik's been capturing stunning visuals and telling captivating stories through his lens for over a decade. His passion for videography and storytelling has taken him all around the world, from weddings and elopements to documentary projects and live streaming. Westward Films are all about creating bespoke wedding films that are unique, personal, and cinematic. In this episode, we'll chat to Erik about his journey to becoming a videographer, his creative process, and his approach to capturing those special moments. We'll also dive into some of his most memorable weddings and the challenges he's faced as a wedding videographer. Oh, and maybe a little bit of flying too. Welcome to the show, Erik.
Thank you. Good morning.
So nice to have you on the show.
Same here. I look forward to chatting with you about weddings and videography.
I love chatting to friends. It's so much easier. So, Erik, tell me about who you are and how you became Westward Films. I know your background is actually in science, which is awesome. So this is a bit of a different field to get into. Talk me through that.
Yeah. So it's basically about 10 years ago. When I was in full-time science, my background is in microscopy. So for me, concepts like lenses and apertures, focal lengths, all that kind of stuff, that's a walk in the park. So I always had an affinity with that. But then about 10 years ago, just by sheer coincidence, the opportunity came onto my path to start filming weddings, and I was really intrigued by that concept where you can actually create a visual memory of somebody's big day that they can hold on for many years to come into the future, and to create it out of absolutely nothing. That's what I find a little bit magic. And so when I started this videography journey, like I said, the technical side was quite easy for me, but it was the artistic side that was the challenge, and it was very rewarding to nail that at some point. How I really got started is when my wife, who is a marriage celebrant, was asked to deliver a little clip for Channel 9 at the time from the very first series of Married at First Sight, and they wanted to see her on camera how she would perform. And at those days, she hadn't done any weddings where a videographer could provide her with a clip. So she asked me, like, Erik, you've always been filming, film a little bit of me. And that's how the ball got rolling. That particular ceremony I filmed more so for the celebrant rather than the couple. Came out so well that I thought maybe I should offer a few free videos to my wife's clients. And so I did 2 videos for free, and basically the feedback was so overwhelmingly good that I thought I could actually make a living out of this, perhaps, or at least have it as a side hustle. From that point onwards, it has grown very quickly, the business, and within a couple of years I decided to switch from full-time science to full-time videography, and have never looked back. I'm really enjoying it.
So, and you do such incredible work. It really is one of those areas where you get what you pay for, and what you've been able to bring to the industry is just so beautiful. Talk me through the pricing process, that idea of you get what you pay for. I mean, obviously you can get a videography service for a lesser price, but what do you think Westward Films brings to the table in terms of what's different from what you charge to what someone who might charge $1,200?
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference in pricing comes from whether the videography company you're going with is turning out like a lot of videos, and it becomes a bit of like quantity drives the price down, or is your videographer more like a boutique style and is really focused on quality and not so much on turning out like hundreds of videos per year. And so within that, if you have I don't like to use the word boutique videographer, but if you have a boutique videographer that is committed to you as a couple and really puts in the work for your films, that means that you basically you spend a lot more time as a videographer on each project compared to when it's a cookie cutter system that turns them out like 2 or 3 a week. And so with that, more time spent on a video obviously results into a somewhat higher fee for the film, but then it is what you get, what you pay for, because I do a lot of extra work on the films compared to a standardized approach. So there's a lot of color grading. There's a lot of like critical selection of clips that I use. I know, for example, that Uncle Bob was a little bit drunk on the dance floor, so probably maybe not shoot him there. I know that the sister of the bride, for example, came over from the United States, and it's important to the bride that she's going to be featured in there. All these little extra things you only have when your videographer knows about the couple and about the day, and knows how to edit, and ultimately that's relating into a somewhat higher fee.
Yeah, that's right. And also, some videographers will send it off to an external place to be edited, and if that external place doesn't know those little ins and outs, well, you're not going to get them featured in your film. So I do love that you're a one-person show and that you do it from start to finish, and you're really invested in your clients and their overall end result. So Erik, can you tell me, obviously with COVID, we've had videography change to also videography and live streaming, which is not something that every company offers. And you kind of specialize in this. I would say you're the guy who's known for the live streaming. So tell me about that, and why is that important, and who is that based at?
Yeah, so live streaming is a really fantastic opportunity that really developed during COVID, where a lot of couples decide to do live streaming because they may have some family or extended family overseas that they really can't invite, and they still want them to be part of the ceremony. And so when I started the live streaming, I realized that if you're going to present a live feed to somebody overseas, they must be able to connect with the ceremony and with the couple as they're doing the ceremony. And so what I decided to do early on is to kind of use the same approach as my normal wedding videography, where we use multiple cameras and feed that into the live stream, so that we can, when you switch to between those angles, people really get a sense that they're there. Technically, it's a lot harder than traditional videography, because of course we are managing all these feeds coming live into the broadcast, and if anything like goes wrong with maybe a backup camera or a backup audio system, you'll be exposed. People can hear that and see that. So you got to be really you got to have all your extra gear in place and be quick on your feet to think what to do if something goes wrong. So I've found that live streaming is fantastic opportunity. It is a bit more stress, and therefore, if couples ask me to do both live streaming and the traditional videography, we often have to get an extra staff member on board, because otherwise I'll just go nuts with the with the workload, which would compromise the video. Technically it's demanding, and there's a lot of variables that could go wrong. So and to make sure that you have backups for those, that is just a high workload. But it's fun, and it's rewarding to be able to bring people from across the globe to a ceremony, and to do it well. I love that part of the.
Now, we've talked about how you are obviously a one-person show, and you have really quite a unique style of videography. Can you talk me through what you think your style is like? What's a word that can describe it, or how would you describe it?
My style is, it's really depending on the personality of the couple. So I don't have a standard style that applies to all couples. Certainly, I do have a certain a color grading look to my films, and I may approach the editing process in the same way. But the vibe that you get from each film is highly personalized towards the couple. And that's depending on their personality, what their friends are like, what their bridal party's like, how the dance floor kicks off at night, or whether we have classical music or hard rock music. And all these features that I collect during the day, all these bits of information, I bring back into the editing suite to create this film for this couple that is highly unique. It's hard to see for, let's say, my next bride that is going to book me to know that this video is very personally tailored to this couple, because they don't know the couple. But every couple themselves will know exactly that this video has been edited exactly to their style. But most importantly, to get to that, what I always do is at a wedding just to have fun. To make sure you have fun with your couple, to make sure that we have fun with the photographer, the celebrant, all the vendors. And when you create such a good vibe, then the smiles will be real, the laughters will be real, and then it's very easy to create that bit of magic that comes with those wedding films. And if it becomes too strained, then you can ask somebody to smile, or you can ask somebody to walk towards you, and they don't really know what they're doing, or they feel awkward. You're never going to be able to create a nice film out of that. So that's my approach. It's got to be fun, and it's totally personalized to how the couple is.
And that's one thing that you are. You're definitely fun. I mean, you've got such a personal approach to people. It's so easy to warm to you, which is so lovely for your clients, because not everybody is an extrovert. You know, if you've got an introverted couple, you have a real soft way about bringing out that comfortable nature to people, whereas there are other suppliers out there who are wham bam in your face, which is not necessarily the vibe that's great for every sort of couple. So I would say, you know, your personality is really matched. So lovely.
Yeah, exactly. And I've had to make all kinds of jokes that fits the particular couple, from political jokes that I don't even get myself that well, to downright raunchy jokes, because that's how they vibe. And you kind of just quickly work out what works for a couple. And I'm pretty easy. I can make jokes in all areas, or we don't make jokes at all, if that's what is required.
So, you know, you talked about being there through the day, right? Getting changed, getting ready. And then you talked about the dance floor. So I just want to break that down and talk about your package a little bit. Do you customize packages? Do you have one price? How long are you there for? Your family must miss you. This is a long day. And this is one thing that I think wedding couples don't really appreciate, is like the time, that you're there on the wedding day, the meetings you've had up to that, the time editing after. You know, I'm on all of these forums, and it's like, I want an affordable wedding videographer. Well, time is expensive. So talk me through that, your time spent at a wedding and what your packages are like.
Yeah, so for example, if we were to spend 8 hours at a wedding, like you said, it's not just the 8 hours that you charge the client for. There's lead up, there's meetings in the lead up, and then of course the editing probably takes about 3/4 of the actual time spent on a wedding film. So 1/4 is filming and 3/4 is editing. So if you bring that down to an hourly rate, it's really not that exorbitant as some people may think. So you're right. On a day where you shoot for 8 or 10 hours, it's a long day, and it's usually on the weekends. You're away from your family, and that is hard. But the upside of that is that during the week I have more time at home, and I'm quite flexible in how I allocate my hours. So usually for things that are happening with the family during the week, I can always make something work. But in terms of like how many hours do you suggest for a couple to film that day, I always try to chip down on the amount of hours. Not so much because I don't want to work as much, but it's just the budget of the client you're dealing with. And I say let's chip down to the point where we have the least amount of hours booked in, but it doesn't impact your view on how your film should look like. And that's of course different for every couple. But things where you can chip away on the length of the coverage would be at night. For example, once the dance floor is in full swing, I can stay another 2 hours and capture more dancing, but the video is not going to get any better because of it. yet you would still pay for that. So I usually say when the dance floor is kicked off and people are dancing, let me capture 5 or 10 minutes of that, and that rounds up your video very nicely. And then same at the beginning of the day. For example, if the preparation of the cup to them, then that's also something that just don't spend it on the videography, spend it elsewhere. Some couples get ready in a just a somewhat anonymous Airbnb that is meaningless to them, and they much rather than start the coverage at the ceremony. So there's all these options, and it's kind of my task in the lead up to make sure that we get the smallest package possible, so that the couple feels that they're getting maximum value for their money.
Yeah. So you kind of customize then. It's not like you have one package that rolls over to every client. You kind of have an inquiry, speak to them about what they want, put something together based on that.
Exactly. And I don't care if a client wants me for 2 hours or for 10 hours. I've even had clients booked in for a full day, and they chipped it down to a few hours because of financial troubles during the course of their wedding planning. Win some, you lose some. I've also gone the other way, where on the day the couple would say, Erik, can you stay till the end? Sure enough, we'll work out the invoice later. I'll stay to the end and exactly deliver what they're after. So yeah, I think you should be flexible, and if you're like me in a one-man band, effectively, I'll be there anyway. I'm filming anyway. I can be flexible, and we can tailor a package to pretty much any situation.
I love it. Let's talk a little bit about your turnaround time. You know, I think there is unrealistic expectations out there about when people should get a sneak peek or when people should get their full video back. What do you offer, and what's your time frame?
Yeah, so my standard time frame is about 8 weeks, and this obviously depends on how many weddings are flooding in that particular peak season. Currently, I'm running at about 8 to 10 weeks per wedding. And some couples say, yeah, that's fine. And others say, oh, that's quite long. And so I have to explain a bit what goes into that. Obviously, I won't be editing 8 weeks straight on a single wedding. I try to phase it in different different parts of the edit process over time. So at the moment, I'm working on like 4 edits at the same time for different couples, just to make sure that I don't get stuck in one particular process too much, and keep that freshness of mind when I'm editing, to keep that going. I think the most important thing is that once I create that story, it has to be a fun story. It has to be light, and sometimes I don't feel like that. Like I had a bad day with the family, or I feel tired. Then obviously I shouldn't be editing a love story, but I can do some admin or some groundwork on the edit. So there's a lot of steps involved, but yeah, about 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And when you talk about capturing audio on the day, how do you do that? Do you mic up the couples? What do you do there?
Yeah. So the audio is probably the most important part of any wedding video. You can have really nice visuals with bad audio, and you've got a really crap film. The other way around, if your visuals are not tip top, but your audio is crystal clear, you can still have an enjoyable film. And I learned this the hard way early on. So the way I capture my audio is obviously I capture everything with the ceremony and the speeches. And for example, if there is a first look, I'll capture that as well. But the important thing is that we capture it with microphones close to the source. So for a celebrant, that would mean a microphone on the PA system. And it not taped to the front, but actually the proper line out from the system itself. Some videographers, they prefer to also then have a backup on the actual microphone with a little sleeve, with a little pen recorder. That's kind of a backup. You can mic up the groom as well. That's again a backup. And all these things make sure are fail-safe systems, that if one source fails, you can always resort to the other two. But yeah, like I said, audio is the most important thing, and I've always put a lot of effort into capturing the best quality audio. For example, live music that's playing. How do you capture live music? Do you put a recorder in front of the performers, or do you plug into their sound desk? And that can be different for every situation. Sometimes there's drums which don't go through a sound desk, and then you capture the feed, and there's no drums in your feed. So you really got to learn, often the hard way, how to capture proper sound, so that you can then mix it in later into your edit. And if you do it well, your clients will never know that you've captured it in a particular way.
Isn't it, to couple with videography? I always ask my clients, what have you booked? What have you not booked? And one thing they say, oh, well, we're not having a videographer. And I talk them through why they will regret that. And I basically say, photos are one thing and it's a moment in time, but a video is audio, your voice put to music with, your photos, your images of the day. It's totally different. And it evokes a different response in people. For me, when I listen to music put with spoken word, I want to cry if it's something really beautiful. So how do you pick your music?
So yeah, the music is one of the hardest parts in the editing process to pick, because it's got to obviously fit the personality of the couple. But more importantly, it also needs to have elements of where it kind of ramps up throughout the course of the song, so that we end up with a bit of a party vibe. But it has to be meaningful and a bit slower at the start. They have to be the lyrics obviously got to be meaningful, and there has to be little bits lulls in the song where I can maybe put a voiceover on there. So out of the tens of thousands of songs that we can choose from, sometimes it's a real struggle to find that song that fits my couple that I'm editing at the time. And so what I do, because of that all these steps in the editing process takes quite a bit of time, I'll just run music in the background. And as that at some point that song comes along that I think, yes, that's exactly for these two, I'll then know what I'm starting to edit towards. It becomes a framework of my edit. But you're right. I think audio and music and movement is so much more powerful than a photo. I think the main difference between a video is that when you watch a video, you're being told and you're being shown what you need to feel effectively. Whereas if you see a photo, it can be up to you how to interpret that photo. It becomes your imagination of like, what were they thinking? What were they doing? Where was this? Whereas a video is a bit more constrained, where it says, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what we're feeling, and this is what you need to hear. So there's a bit of responsibility in creating a good video, because I'm taking the viewer on a journey that I basically dictate how they're going to experience it. And therefore it has to really match the couple's personality. And if it does, then people are happily taken on a video journey and listening to the voiceovers and feel immersed. And that's when you create a good video, I think.
Yeah, magic. It is absolute magic. Let's talk a little bit about the other suppliers you have to work with on the day. Now, obviously, you're going to encounter lots of different suppliers through the day, but the two most important are probably the celebrant, because obviously that person needs to be able to move in a certain way that you're going to be able to capture your video in a certain way, and also your photographer. So this is probably the most important thing, is the photographer, because if someone is not mindful of you, they're going to be standing in front of the shots that you want to take. So I always try to explain to my clients how important it is that your suppliers actually know each other, because the amount of times that I've had feedback from different people in the industry saying, oh gosh, like this photographer was near impossible to work with, or this celebrant really didn't stand in the most appropriate places. Tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so it can be a challenge to work with other vendors that kind of encroach on your, let's say, territory. But I've always put in a lot of effort into setting the right vibe with all the people I work with straight from the get-go. So, for example, with the photographer, if I don't know this person and we meet at the groom's preparation for the very first time, I think it's the most important thing is that we create a connection straight away that is on good standing, and that we respect each other's craft. I would, for example, say, if I'm in your shot, please tell me to get out because it'll be by accident. So I'm basically offering something here. And then most of the time, no, without fail, all the time, photographers would say, no, I'm the same, just tell me to get out. And we got a good understanding. It's a whole different story when a photographer would, first thing they would say, if you're in my shot, I really don't appreciate that, so I'll tell you to get out then. Then I'm like, oh, that's a bit hostile, you know? So that it comes down to different personalities. I am very much about making sure that other people can do their job. And within that space, I try to do my job. If my job gets affected, obviously I have to speak up and I have to make sure that I get my shots regardless. But it's really about making sure that you get along and that people respect each other's craft and each other's personality. And then it's easy. And I haven't had a single photographer that I really couldn't work with. And it's been a joy. And I love to work with new people. New celebrants, new photographers, and new venue owners, because you actually get to learn new things of how they approach the day. Now with celebrants, obviously we need to have the audio feed from the celebrant, so there's often a bit of a discussion about how we would get that. Some celebrants are not so comfortable with people plugging into the system because they don't quite understand their own systems, and that there's just a bit of education that needs to happen there. And others are completely open and say, yeah, do whatever you want with my system, and I trust what you're doing. For example, what's good for celebrants that I like when a celebrant knows about the videography or the photography requirements is that they, for example, will be out of certain shots rather than in every shot. The classical, I walk out of the frame for the first kiss or for the rings. That gives the photographer and the videographer a very clean shot of just a couple in an intimate moment, exchanging rings, for example. But on the other end, it can be more intricate, where, for example, where the celebrant knows that if these two groomsmen that are clearly not standing symmetrically compared to the bridesmaids, the whole shot's going to look odd. And some celebrants, they will see that and say, you need to move over half a meter just for the video or just for your photo. And other celebrants, they're so preoccupied and they won't see that. So there's a lot of different levels of quality, if you like, between celebrants, but the ones that take into account photography and videography. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
Okay, Erik, you have just been a wealth of knowledge, but I want to hear about your craziest wedding story. Look, we've all got one of them, and I'm sure you've had some interesting things happen over the years. Talk me through your craziest or your most memorable.
That's crazy. Oh God, I've had weddings where I've found myself in bedrooms with a whole lot of bridesmaids and a naked bride who decided to strip down camera. But that's obviously none of that footage was not even recorded, let alone end up in a video. But yeah, you sometimes find yourself in situations that you think like, oh, this is getting a bit awkward. I've had weddings where it completely rained out. Now normally we try to avoid rain, both the couples and of course the suppliers, because like I can't have my equipment get soaking wet. I might electrocute myself. But this wedding was in Echuca, and I remember this vividly. The couple was so cool about getting wet, and I'm talking drenched, like soaked wet, like ridiculously wet. And they were under some umbrellas that were too small, but we all had massive umbrellas. We were kind of like, okay, my cameras, they survived. But it was amazing that the vibe was still so good that we all had fun in the rain. That has never happened to me. Like normally when it starts to rain, everybody panics and we move inside and we all go like, oh God, thank God we're out of the rain. This was just fantastic. Everybody accepted that we were going to get soaking wet. And we made the most of it. And I got some of the best shots out of it with backlit shots, with the rain coming down and umbrellas. So you never know what you're going to get. You just roll with the punches and just have a good time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Crazy. But the thing about getting wet is that you get cold after wetsuit or whatever. But
no. So we spent a bit of time drying the bride and the groom. Literally, the dress came off. It went on top of the heater for like 10 minutes, and the suit was hand dried with a hair dryer, and we were out ready for some more shots. We made it work. It was great.
Wow. Now, look, one thing I think is really cool for clients to know is sort of an insight into you. And I know bits and pieces about you because we're mates, but where can we find you on a day off? Are you building an airplane?
Oh, that's my hobby for the next God knows how many years. Yeah, I've taken the crazy and bold step to give in to my urges early on in COVID when we were all sitting at home browsing the internet trying to find something to do, and I've had my pilot's license since 2007, so many years ago, and I've always rented planes to fly. And at some point, I figured, how cool would it be if you could just build your own? Not so much even to fly it, but even just the building process itself. And so, ordered that just a small part of the plane from an American kit company. It has arrived a couple of weeks ago to be assembled.
Where are you gonna assemble this? This is not a small thing to do, Erik. You need a hangar. Are you gonna get some land in Kyneton or something?
But you're asking all the difficult questions. I just want to build an airplane now. Of course, I thought of that. Most of the build can be done literally in a 2-car garage, which it will be done. But obviously, once you get to the final stages, it has to somehow come out of this garage, goes on a trailer, and then the final assembly will be at an airport. So I'm gonna have to still find some accommodation or a hangar for this thing once it's ready. So this is just a hobby that's gonna take me many years and many hours to. But that's kind of my to pastime. Yeah.
Good on you, because I think sometimes people get through, their working life and they look back and they go, what have I done? I've worked and I haven't really done my passion, or I don't have a hobby. And this is one thing my husband and I talk about all the time, is how important it is, especially as you get older, that you do have that hobby and that thing that you love for yourself. So good on you for finding that. Now, Erik, it's been an absolute pleasure. You are a gem and a half. I love working with you. And in the show notes, we'll obviously put links to where people can truly someone who can make you feel like you're at home. So thanks so much, Erik.
Gareth, it was